Hello, I am Saly Thomas, faculty at Silver Hills Public School, KOZHIKODE. I am here to discuss globalization and the Indian economy, a chapter from Class 10 Economics. Have you ever wondered at the enormous quantity and varieties of consumer goods in supermarkets, shopping complexes and malls? From the latest models of mobile phones and digital cameras, to televisions and air conditioners, to cars manufactured by top companies of the world are available in the Indian markets today. Barely 3 decades ago, we had very limited choice of goods from Kirana stores and ambassadors and Fiats on the Indian roads. This kind of explosion of consumer goods and the transformation of Indian markets is due to a phenomenon called globalization. In this chapter, we are going to analyze the factors that brought about globalization in India and how it affected the lives of the people and the economy of our country. If you look at the history of our country, we can see that India had trade relations with many countries of the world from a very ancient time. India used to export a few raw materials, a few agricultural products, foodstuffs, etc. It imported finished products like machineries. Import and export or trade was a very limited affair. Until the mid 20th century, even production was a very simple affair, which was confined to the boundaries of regions and countries. So, production was very simple and limited. Trade was also very simple and limited. This was before large companies called multinational corporations entered the scene. Multinational corporations or MNCs are large companies which own or control production in more than one nation, and their sole aim is to maximize profits. And to maximize the profits, the multinational corporations dissect the production process and spread it across many different countries. To understand this production process, we look at an example, dissection or spreading of production by MNCs. Consider an MNC, a US based automobile company. They want to launch a new model of a car. The first process in the production is designing of the product, and the designing takes place in the research and development wing of the company in the US. The next stage is component manufacturing, and components of this car is produced or manufactured not in the US but in China. Once the components are manufactured, they are shipped or transported to countries like Mexico and Eastern Europe, where it is assembled. The third production process is assembling. Now the product is complete and it is sold all over the world. The next process, the final process, is customer care service, which is provided by call centers situated in Bangalore, India. I repeat, by dissecting the production process, the multinational corporations are spreading the production across the globe. The designing is done in the US, component manufacturing in China, assembling in Mexico and Eastern Europe. The product is sold all over the world, and customer care service provided by call centers in India. By doing this, the MNCs are not just selling their finished products globally, but the goods and services are produced globally. Production process, which was a very simple affair, has become complicated and complex. The production process is dissected into smaller parts and is spread across different countries of the world. Why is the MNC doing this? Let us analyze and go back to the example. Why is the company producing the components in China, not in US? This is because China is a comparatively cheap manufacturing location. Compared to the US, the raw materials and labor, etc. are much cheaper. Why assembling in Mexico and Eastern Europe? This is because of closeness of markets. Mexico can cater to both American continents, and Eastern Europe will take care of European countries and the neighboring Asian countries. And why customer care from India? This is because India has highly skilled professional engineers who understand the technical aspects of production very well. India also has a large youth population, educated, and who can communicate very well in English and take care of customer care services. And by doing this, the MNCs are cutting down the cost of production up to 50 to 60% and maximize their profits. And therefore, by dissecting the production process and spreading it across the globe, the MNCs are interconnecting or interlinking production and different countries, which is the essence of globalization. So, we can say that globalization is the result of activities of MNCs, and there is a second element which is foreign trade. Let us analyze these topics. Interlinking production across countries by MNCs. Generally, when MNCs look for locations across the globe, they look at certain aspects. Firstly, they look at places where they have good demand for their products. They also look at availability of different factors of production like raw materials, skilled and unskilled labor, etc. at a cheap rate. They also look at favorable government policies like tax policies, labor conditions, as well as the legal formalities. Once they are assured of these conditions, the MNCs start their production process, factories, industries and offices in the chosen location. The money spent for buying assets like land, buildings, machines and equipments is called investment. And when the investment is made by an MNC, it is called foreign investment. So, the first method of operation by MNCs is foreign investment. They invest their capital, large amount of capital, in chosen locations in developing countries and set up their production. And by doing this, they are interconnecting or integrating their home country with the host country. So, the first method of operation by the MNCs is foreign investment. The second method by which the MNCs operate is collaborating or setting up partnership with established local companies. Now, why would a local company agree to set partnership with a foreign company? There are two reasons. Firstly, the multinational corporation brings with it the latest technology. And secondly, they bring with them huge amounts of capital. So, with the available latest technology and huge amounts of capital, the company can expand their production both quantitatively and qualitatively and gain high amounts of profit. So this is the second method of operation by MNCs, and that is collaborating or setting up partnership with local companies. This we can understand with the example of a US based multinational corporation, Ford Motors. Ford Motors is a multinational corporation operating in 26 different countries of the world. Ford Motors came to India in 1995 and set up a large plant near Chennai. They spent 1,700 crores of rupees for this plant, and this was done in collaboration with an Indian automobile company, Mahindra & Mahindra. In a few years' time, Ford India expanded its production so much that it is selling 77,000 cars in Indian markets, and another 77,000 cars are being exported to countries like Mexico, Brazil and South Africa. Ford India is also planning to convert this plant as a component supplying base for its operations across those 26 different countries. So, by collaborating with the local company Mahindra & Mahindra, the MNC is integrating or interconnecting production across so many different countries. The second method of operation by the MNCs is collaborating or setting up partnership with existing local companies. The third method of operation by MNCs is buying up local companies and expanding production. You must be wondering how these MNCs are able to buy up local companies. They can do it because these monster companies are extremely wealthy, and some of the multinational corporations own wealth exceeding the total national income of some of the developing countries. So, with that kind of wealth, you can imagine the power and the influence enjoyed by these companies. The fourth method of operation by the MNCs is placing orders with small local producers, and this happens especially in items like footwear, garments and sports goods. Many MNCs place their orders for their products with small local companies, and these local companies get these products made from people in the village areas. Once the product is supplied to the MNC sells them under their brand name. For example, Reebok has contracted Lakhani India for producing their shoes. So, you must be wondering, if the product is being made in villages of India, how can we trust the quality of the product? We do not have to worry about it, because the MNC has tremendous control over the production process. The pricing of the product, the labor cost and the conditions, and the quality of the raw materials, everything is decided by the MNC. So, these are the four different ways in which the MNCs are operating and integrating production across countries. They are connecting or interlinking so many different countries of the world, which is leading towards globalization. These are some of the multinational corporations operating from India. The second element of globalization is foreign trade and integration of markets. Foreign trade has two components, exports and imports. To understand the role of foreign trade for globalization, we have to understand how foreign trade is benefiting producers and consumers. For the producers, the foreign trade creates an opportunity to reach beyond the local markets. They can sell their products in their own country as well as export the product to another country and sell over there. It also provides them an opportunity to compete with producers of that particular country. How does it benefit the consumers? For the consumers, the import of goods, foreign goods, into their local market expands the choice of goods for them, which will increase the standard of living of the people. This can be understood by an example of Chinese toys in India. The Chinese toy manufacturers understand that in India the toys are very expensive. So, they get an opportunity to export Chinese made toys into Indian markets. What happens in the Indian market now? The consumers have a choice between Indian toys and Chinese toys. And because of the better designs, bright colors and cheaper prices, the Indian buyers become very enamored with the Chinese toys. And within no time, Chinese toys become very popular in the Indian market, and 70 to 80% of toy shops in India replace Indian toys with Chinese toys. So, what is happening here now? Because of the opening of trade, Chinese toys come into Indian markets. There is more choice of goods for the Indian consumers. In the competition between Indian toys and Chinese toys prove better, and the Chinese toy manufacturers get an opportunity to expand the production because of the competition, whereas the Indian toy manufacturers face losses and go out of business. So, we can understand that the effects of foreign trade are the following. Firstly, because of foreign trade, goods and services move from one market to another. The choice of goods in the two markets rise. The prices of similar quality goods tend to become equal, and producers in the two countries compete with each other even though they are separated by thousands of miles. So, these are the effects of foreign trade. I will repeat, because of foreign trade, goods travel from one market to another, choice of goods in the market rises, prices of similar quality goods tend to become equal, and the producers of the different countries closely compete against each other even though they are separated by thousands of miles. Through this process, foreign trade is resulting in greater integration of markets in different countries, and that is how foreign trade contributes towards globalization. So, what exactly is globalization? Let us analyze. In the last few decades, we can see that foreign investment by MNCs are on the rise. They are investing in so many different developing countries and expanding production. In India, they say there are more than 40,000 multinational corporations operating. At the same time, foreign trade is also increasing. Export and import of goods have multiplied like anything. And a major portion of the foreign trade is also controlled by multinational corporations. We can understand this from the example of Ford Motors. The Ford India is not only manufacturing and selling its cars in Indian markets, it is also exporting to so many different countries. And it is also developing Ford India as the base for component supplying to many parts of the country. So, foreign trade is integrating different countries of the world. So, this increased foreign investment and foreign trade over the years is leading to greater integration and interconnection between countries. The process of rapid integration and interconnection between countries is called globalization. Now, because of globalization, many items like goods, services, investment and technology are moving between countries. More and more goods and services are exported and imported. The MNCs are increasing their foreign investment, and the technology developed in one part of the world is available to the other corner of the world within a matter of days. There is a fifth element which is also moving, which is contributing towards globalization, and that is movement of people. People move from one country to another because of looking for better jobs, better education, better income and better standard of living. So, due to the movement of all these items, goods, services, investment, technology and people, all the countries of the world are getting connected more than ever before, which is known as globalization. Now that you are familiar with globalization, we shall look at the factors that have enabled globalization. There are basically three different factors that have stimulated the globalization process. They are the technological development, the liberalization policy of foreign investment and foreign trade by the government, and pressure from international organizations like the World Trade Organization. Let us look at the technological development. Rapid improvement in technology has stimulated globalization process. This includes development in transportation technology and IT and communication technology. In the recent past, we have seen tremendous improvement in the field of transportation technology in all different modes, which has enabled faster and cheaper movement of goods over long distances. This has enabled globalization. Another improvement was the container technology. Because of the container technology, the goods can be placed in standard sized and shaped containers, which can be easily loaded into trucks, ships, even flights. This has also enabled faster, cheaper and efficient movement of goods. So, these factors, that is improvement in transportation technology, has stimulated globalization process. The next is in the field of IT and communication technology. We can see that in the recent past, there has been an IT revolution in India. The different modes of telecommunication methods, computers and internet has facilitated international communication and sharing of information much more faster and easier, which contributes towards globalization. The second factor that facilitated globalization is the liberalization policy of the government in foreign trade and foreign investment. In the post-independence period, India government had imposed certain barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment. Tax on imports and quota system are examples of trade barriers. With the help of these trade barriers, the government could impose certain restrictions on foreign goods being imported into India and on foreign investment by multinational corporations. This was necessary during that period to protect the Indian producers from foreign competition. During that time, Indian industrialization was happening and the Indian industries were at a stage of infancy. During those days, any kind of foreign competition would not have allowed these industries to come up. So, the government allowed only very few MNCs to invest in India, and allowed only import of essential items like machinery, petroleum and fertilizers. Around 1991, the government introduced certain economic reforms called LPG, L for liberalization, P for privatization and G for globalization. So the government decided that our industries have come of age and are now ready to face competition. They also decided that competition will do them good to improve their performance as well as quality of production. And thus, in 1991, the government removed most of the barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment, which is known as liberalization. And the effects of liberalization are that now goods could be imported and exported easily. Foreign companies could set up their factories and offices in India, and businesses could make decisions freely regarding what they wanted to import or export. And thus, the government imposes much less trade barriers and are said to be liberal. The third factor that has enabled globalization is pressure from international organizations like the World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization or WTO is an organization set up at the initiative of developed countries like the US. The aim of WTO is to liberalize international trade. They believe that any kind of barriers to trade and investment are harmful, and trade between countries should be liberalized. WTO also establishes rules and regulations regarding international trade and ensures that these regulations are followed by all its member countries. And therefore, when India decided to liberalize in the year 1991, it was fully supported by the WTO. So these are the factors that have enabled globalization. Now let us see the impact of globalization on India, the lives of people as well as on the economy of the country. First, let us see the positive effects. Who all benefited from globalization? First, the local companies which collaborated with the MNCs. They benefited because the technology and the capital brought by the MNCs helped them to expand their production and maximize their profits. The companies which supplied raw materials also benefited. The companies which supplied components also benefited. Next, the people who were educated, skilled professionals, they benefited because of the employment opportunities created by these MNCs. These people are enjoying much more income and higher standards of living. Some top Indian companies also benefited because of globalization. These companies innovated, adopted the latest technology so that they could compete with the foreign companies and in the process maximize their profits. Several Indian companies themselves turned out to be MNCs. For example, Tata Motors, Infosys, Asian Paints, etc. These companies have set up their offices and factories in many different countries of the world. The companies which are providing IT services, engineering and administrative services also have benefited from globalization. These companies are exporting their services to many different developed countries of the world. Another group of people who have benefited from globalization are the well-off, rich consumers in urban areas. For them, there are more variety of goods available at better quality and lower prices. This has enabled them to increase the standard of living enjoyed by these people. Now, what about the MNCs themselves? Have they benefited? Surely they have benefited. This we can say because of the fact that the number of MNCs have been increasing exponentially in India. We have more than 40,000 MNCs right now in India. This itself proves that MNCs have benefited, they have maximized their profit by investing in India. Now, what about the government? Does the government want more and more MNCs to come into India? Yes, they definitely, because they feel that MNCs means more industries, more employment opportunities, more production and more national income. So, they are adopting various measures to increase foreign investment in India and attract MNCs to India. Let us discuss some measures taken by MNCs to attract foreign investment. The first one is setting up of industrial zones called special economic zones with world-class facilities. The government acquires land and develops this land with the best facilities available like transportation and communication facilities, education and recreation facilities, electricity and water supply, etc. And all the MNCs which invest in such zones are also given tax exemption for the initial 5 years. Also, the government is providing certain flexibility in labor laws for these MNCs. We know that there are different kinds of laws protecting the rights of workers. Like for example, the Minimum Wages Act, Provident Fund Act, Gratuity Act, etc. Now, the MNCs have been told by the government that they can relax these policies. They don't have to be strict about following these policies. And as a result, the MNCs are employing the workers on a temporary basis rather than on a regular basis, and they are exploiting laborers. They are paid lower wages and no other benefits, and the workers are suffering due to this. So, these are the positive impacts. Now, let us discuss the negative impact of globalization. Who did not benefit from the globalization process? The first group of people who have been hit hard are the small producers or small scale industries. For them, the situation is compete or perish. These small industries and small scale producers are hit because of the competition offered by MNCs and the imported foreign goods. Their products are not demanded any longer because of the higher prices, and many of their businesses have been shut down, rendering thousands of workers jobless. This is an alarming situation for India because small scale industries is a sector which employs the largest number of people after agriculture in India. So, we can imagine the problems faced by this sector due to globalization. The next group of people who have impacted negatively by the globalization are the workers themselves. Basically, the low skilled or semi-skilled workers who are working for small producers, small scale industries, exporters, etc. The competition between the different producers or small scale industries to get large orders from MNCs is leading to the problems for the workers. The MNCs demand their products to be of the cheapest cost. So, in order to reduce the cost of production, the producers and the exporters cut down on cost of labor. So, the workers are employed on a temporary basis. They are not employed on a regular basis at much lower wages. And the workers, they have to work with lower wages. Their employment is not secure. Anytime they can be kicked out of the job. They have to work overtime. They have to do night shifts. And they have to struggle to make both ends meet. So, this is the condition of workers who are denied the fair share of benefits of globalization. There are more negative impacts. There are negative impacts on the environment of the country also. More MNCs means more industries. More industries means more production. More production means more use or overuse of resources, which will lead to more waste generation and increased environmental pollution. Our sustainable development goal has been compromised. Let us come to the last topic of the chapter, struggle for a fair globalization. When we analyzed the positive and negative impacts of globalization, we saw that not everyone has benefited from globalization. The people who have benefited are the rich and the powerful, the well-off consumers, the educated and skilled professionals. What about millions of other people who belong to the lower strata of society? They have been denied any share in the benefits of globalization. Now, what is fair globalization? Fair globalization would create opportunities for all, and the benefits of globalization would be shared better by everyone. So, what can be done to ensure fair globalization? The government of the country can take certain measures to ensure this. For example, the government's policies must protect the interests of all the people of the country, not just the rich and the powerful. Labor laws should be implemented properly by the government and workers' rights should be protected. The government should protect the interests of the small producers till the time they become powerful enough to compete. They should use trade and investment barriers whenever necessary. The government can negotiate with WTO for fairer rules. It can also align with other developing countries of the world and fight against the domination of WTO by the developed countries of the world like the US. People also can play their role in ensuring fair globalization. In many countries like Hong Kong, people have staged protests. So, by staging protests and campaigns, the people can also play a big role in enabling fair globalization. So, these are the different ways in which fair globalization can be ensured. Before I conclude, I would like you to reflect on what you have learned. We are living in an intensively interdependent world in which all the people of the earth are more closely connected than ever before in the history of mankind. Goods, services, information and technology developed in one country are available to all different parts of the world. International travel and communication have become commonplace. Geographical boundaries are non-existent. The whole world has shrunk to a global village, and we are all global citizens. Very good indeed. But in the process, are we promoting a materialistic, consumeristic culture? Are we closing our eyes to cutthroat competition and exploitation of workers? Are we simply aping Western culture and lifestyle? Are we compromising sustainable development? As young citizens and soon to be adults, I would like you to contemplate on these aspects. And also remember that it's not just the good things that is spreading across the globe. A microscopic virus that surfaced at Wuhan in China has spread through the entire globe in a matter of just few days, creating a devastating pandemic, which can also be attributed as an effect of globalization. So let us all try and adopt only the good aspects of globalization and contribute towards sustainable development and an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you.